I never imagined that I would be writing one of these things. Yet here I am, sitting in my car outside of Denny's at 2 in the morning, typing this on my phone. Although life frequently throws us curveballs, this one is completely out of control. It began 3 months ago when my brother, Fletcher, returned to the area following the failure of his construction company in Arizona. Lori, my wife, proposed that we allow him to remain with us until he recovered. Since he is my brother, I concurred. In hindsight, I ought to have seen how willing she was to assist him. I nearly missed the first red flag since it was so little. One day, they were laughing in the kitchen when I arrived home early. Typical enough, isn't it? However, Lori stopped laughing right away and stepped back from Fletcher like a mischievous adolescent. Fletcher gave me a smirk that makes your stomach turn, but your brain tells you that you're thinking too much about it. The phone thing followed. Lori began carrying her phone with her everywhere, including into the restroom. When texting, she would tilt her screen away, and I saw that she had switched from utilizing our common pattern to her fingerprint lock. Yes, it was the degree of trust we once shared. She wasn't in bed when I woke up at 3 in the morning one night. I discovered her in the living room, hastily shutting down her laptop as soon as I entered. She said, "I just couldn't sleep." Correct. Fletcher began looking for excuses to visit any time I wasn't. He would say he was looking for a job online anyhow, and volunteer to keep Lori company while I was at work. I am still frustrated with myself for recommending him for a job at my company, but he always managed to work different shifts than me. The last week marked a pivotal moment. When I went to pay some bills in our joint account, half of our money vanished. $23,000 simply disappeared. The transfers were made over the previous 2 months to a different account. Lori giggled when I challenged her. In fact, I laughed. "John, what did you anticipate?" She spoke without even trying to hide her feelings. "I'm leaving with Fletcher. Unlike you, he is truly going somewhere. You were merely practical." At that moment, Fletcher entered with the same grin. "Anyway, dude, she was never content with you. You're simply too naive to recognize it. But thanks for the initial funding. We have ambitious plans." My wife of 8 years, who had already packed her suitcases, picked them up as I stood there. I suppose it accounts for her recent shopping excursions. She removed her wedding band, which we had chosen together at that small jewelry store downtown, and threw it in the kitchen garbage. As she left, she remarked, "You were just a stepping stone." They believed that I would erupt, yell, even attempt to strike Fletcher. However, I watched them go, remaining as composed as possible. Fletcher appeared nearly dissatisfied by my inaction. They are unaware that I have known for weeks. I've also been making plans. You see, I was playing one of my own games while they were occupied with theirs. I spent every late night at work collecting proof. I was the catalyst for every guy's night out. They believe they are very intelligent, but they are unaware of what is about to happen. I won't beg or become angry. As they undoubtedly anticipate, I won't key their car or get drunk and act foolish. No, I'll do something far superior. Something that will cause them to feel remorse for ever believing they could trick me. This is only the start. They are most likely celebrating their victory right now. Give them a chance. They will know exactly what kind of man they chose to cross in a few days. I have more to say, but I have to make some calls tomorrow, and it's becoming late. This is not, by any means, over. When the next stage starts, I'll provide an update. A week has passed since my last post, and I am incredibly grateful for everyone's support. I told everyone I wasn't going to roll over after Fletcher and Lori betrayed me. This is what has been going on. Do you recall how I talked about Fletcher's abrupt changes in lifestyle, the new Audi, the lavish trips, the fancy clothes? As it seems, my beloved brother wasn't merely robbing my wife. He was also stealing from his business. What about Lori? She was by his side the entire time. About 6 months ago, I became aware that something was wrong. Fletcher would boast about his investments and side projects all the time, but something didn't stack up. Even with the overtime he claimed to be working, he was living much above what his pay could cover. Then, at a family meal, I overheard him making a mistake when discussing a trip he took to Miami during a week when he was allegedly working late on a significant assignment. This is when things start to get interesting. I knew exactly what projects he was working on because we were in the same sector. His boastful figures didn't align with my understanding of contract principles. At first, there were only little discrepancies, but they soon added up. I remained silent and began recording everything. I would take notes whenever Fletcher brought up a project. I kept track of everything he demonstrated. Lori was constantly arguing that I was jealous of his success. She would roll her eyes at me and remark, "Fletcher knows how to make money move." I now understand her confidence. She was assisting him with the bookkeeping. The worst part was when I discovered receipts in our shared cloud storage that Lori had neglected to remove. Shell accounts sent fabricated vendor payments, inflated expense reports, and invoices for non-existent items. They weren't masterminds of crime. They were simply careless and conceited. Every transaction, every falsehood, every falsified document, I spent 3 months compiling a file. When everything fell apart, I wasn't going to let them blame me for everything. And believe me, I ensured that it would crash. I called Fletcher's company's ethics hotline anonymously last week after they closed our joint accounts. I sent a follow-up email with sufficient evidence to initiate an internal investigation. I knew just which projects to recommend to them. The simplicity of the fallout was lovely. On Monday morning, Fletcher was summoned to a meeting. He was escorted out of the building by lunchtime. There was no major conflict or dramatic incident, just a peaceful departure with a cardboard box containing his possessions. But his face? Priceless. He couldn't provide any proof, but he knew exactly who was responsible. That night, Lori called me, yelling, "How could you harm your own sibling in this way?" She let out a cry. The same laugh Fletcher gave me when he told me about their affair. I simply hung up after laughing. Their idyllic little world is beginning to fall apart. Fletcher's reputation in the field is in ruins. They were subsisting on such investment wins? Lost. Is the new home for which they made a deposit still in their possession? They're rushing to break the agreement. What is the most pleasing feature? The facade they've been hiding is starting to unravel. Our mutual acquaintances are getting in touch with me and sharing all the warning signs they saw but chose not to bring up. Even Fletcher's best friends are turning away from him. Nobody wants to be connected to someone who would steal from both their own brother and their business. I haven't finished yet. This is only the start. Building their new life with stolen money and stolen trust made Fletcher and Lori feel like they were very smart. One crucial point was overlooked. I always take the long view. Don't worry if you're wondering about taking legal action. Everything I did was completely legal. All I did was ensure that the appropriate individuals knew where to look. The remainder will be handled by the company's internal investigation. There will be more updates soon. I've only just begun, and the dominoes are still falling. 2 weeks have passed since everything blew out, and I must admit that I'm loving seeing it all come apart. For those who are just joining, a brief summary is as follows. My wife Lori and brother Fletcher attempted to create their ideal life together, took my money, and deceived me. Karma has been putting in extra effort recently. Let's start by talking about last Thursday. My phone started exploding while I was enjoying my morning coffee. It seemed that Fletcher and Lori were yelling at each other in their front yard. I received a video from Tanya, my next-door neighbor, who has been keeping me informed. Fletcher was shouting that they were completely screwed, and that Lori had promised that everything would be all right while still wearing his pajama clothes. While yelling that he had destroyed everything, and that she had sacrificed a wonderful life for this, Lori was flinging his garments onto the grass. What was the most pleasing part of it all? Every neighbor was observing. Some even recorded the entire event with their phones out. Fletcher and Lori were too preoccupied with letting the entire neighborhood hear about their personal problems to notice. Tanya informed me that Lori was yelling at Fletcher for promising her a better life, but that since he lost his job, they are barely able to pay the rent on their subpar apartment. Recall how Fletcher obtained loans using our joint family company credit after they depleted our joint account? It turns out that you can only live comfortably on stolen money if you have a reliable source of income to support you. Those loan payments are crushing them without his work. My cousin forwarded me a recording of Fletcher phoning our mother and pleading for money. My cousin forwarded to me a recording of Fletcher calling our mother and pleading for money. Mom's reaction? You and the wife of my other son made your bed. Lie in it now. Click. My mother always was gifted with words. We had our yearly family cookout last weekend. Can you guess who missed the invitation? Fletcher and Lori were most likely having ramen at their apartment when I was there, savoring Mom's renowned potato salad. Our Aunt Martha, who had always adored Fletcher, approached me and gave me a hug, expressing her regret for not seeing his true nature sooner. The support from the family has been tremendous. It turns out that, particularly when you betray your own brother, blood isn't necessarily stronger than water. Last week, Lori attempted to connect via Instagram. Can we discuss, John? I left her reading, which was a terrible mistake. Then she began sharing these depressing sayings about second chances and remorse over her stories. Fletcher must have noticed them because he launched on a Facebook tirade, accusing her of being ungrateful and just as bad as her ex, which is me. Very sophisticated, dude. What was the final touch? They had to sell the new car they bought with my money. Yesterday, I passed them in my brand new Ford F-150, which I purchased with the money I received from my recent promotion. It turns out that concentrating on your task rather than seeking retribution is beneficial. They were fighting in front of a payday lending establishment. Fletcher appeared to have gone days without shaving, and Lori, well, let's just say that the expensive designer clothes she bought with my money don't look so new anymore. Their relationship is disintegrating more quickly than a high-tide sandcastle. They've been fighting every night, Tanya informed me. Lori apparently discovered that Fletcher had been chatting with his ex on WhatsApp, most likely in search of his next upgrade. If the irony weren't so pitiful, it would be amusing. Lori has been asking around about job openings, according to rumors I heard. Surprisingly, nobody is making money from her Instagram influencer fantasies. According to my cousin, Fletcher has been drinking more. She saw him in the neighborhood bar, numbing his problems and telling anyone who would listen that life's unfair. Isn't that the perfect way to exact revenge? All I had to do was let them destroy themselves. Perhaps by ensuring that everyone was aware of the truth, I was able to facilitate karma a little. However, they carried out the majority of the labor themselves. They have a meeting with the bank tomorrow to discuss their loans that have fallen into default. I know this because Fletcher drunk texted me at 2 in the morning, alternating between pleading for aid and making threats. I didn't answer. Rebuilding certain bridges is not worth it. I'll provide another update soon. I have a feeling that the house of cards is still crumbling. Since my last post, which was about a month ago, Fletcher's and Lori's situation has truly deteriorated. To be honest, I didn't think it would get this bad, but here we are. I'll begin with last Tuesday. I ran into my cousin, Sarah, while I was getting coffee at that little spot close to our former neighborhood. She informed me that Fletcher had been frantically attempting to borrow money by phoning every member of the family. Their posh apartment's landlord is threatening to evict them since they are reportedly 3 months late on their rent. What's the best part? Even moving out is out of their price range. There was yet more to the karma train. Do you recall Lori's constant boasting about her amazing job prospects? Her current employer discovered that she had assisted Fletcher in stealing from his former company. Although there are no criminal charges, our little town hears about it. They promised her a promotion, but instead moved her to entry-level work. Lost. Last week, Fletcher arrived at my home intoxicated. He was a complete mess, he was not shaving, and was dressed in the same rumpled polo shirt that I had seen him in at Mom's house a few days before. "John, you must assist me," he muttered. "We only need a few $1,000s to get back on our feet. Man, I'm your brother." I stood on my porch and watched him wobble. "Do you remember what you said when you took my wife? In any case, she was never pleased with you. How is that happiness now?" He attempted to play the family card by claiming that his mother, whom he had been avoiding ever since she learned of what he had done to me, was really concerned about him. In his face, I closed the door. The most significant event occurred 3 days ago. Later that night, he contacted me repeatedly from various lines and left progressively irate voicemails complaining that I had ruined his life. Lori texted me, asking if we could speak. I made a grave error. Upon reading it, I couldn't help but laugh. She went on to write a lengthy paragraph explaining how Fletcher had manipulated her and left her confused. It was typical of Lori to never accept accountability. When she threw our wedding ring in the trash and claimed that I was only a stepping stone, I responded with a single picture. There were so many notifications on my phone. "You're being cruel, John," was the final statement after the sobbing emojis and frantic justifications. "You are not this person." "No, Lori. This is who I am, the stepping stone, the person you believed you knew. My aunt told me yesterday that they got into a heated argument in the Walmart parking lot. Fletcher was yelling that Lori had ruined everything by using their savings for expensive holidays and luxury bags when they ought to have been relaxing. Lori was screaming that he had promised her a better life than the one she had with me while hurling items from her purse at him. Very elegant. By posting about fighting against those who want to see us fail and weathering storms together, they attempted damage management on Facebook, but no one is buying it. This morning, their relationship status was updated to, "It's complicated." I got a call from Mom earlier today. Fletcher is currently dozing off on her couch. Lori changed the locks on their apartment. Fletcher is drinking heavily and tells anybody who will listen that he had it all before Lori came along, while she has reportedly been on Tinder, telling people she is separated. What was the highlight of it all? There wasn't much for me to do, merely observe them destroying themselves. The betrayal, the stolen money, and their web of lies all fell apart on their own. You get what you put in. I've never done better. I began regularly attending the gym, received a promotion last month, and began dating someone new. She is fantastic, she is sincere, diligent, and above all, she has never met my brother. Sometimes life is amusing. Losing Lori seemed like the worst thing that could happen to me a year ago. I now see that it was the best course of action. They intended to utilize me as a springboard. Instead, I turned into the obstacle they had to overcome. Lori and Fletcher believe they were penning a romantic tale. Rather, they are embodying a karma-related warning story. And me? I'm just taking in the scenery from above. About half a year has passed since everything went down, so I thought it was time for one last update. Since I last posted, a lot has transpired, and although I've moved on, Fletcher and Lori's fallout has been, let's say, poetic. First up is Fletcher. He attempted to launch his own construction company once more after being dismissed and banned from our sector. The problem is that in a tiny town, word spreads quickly once you've destroyed every bridge. Nobody desired to collaborate with him. Nobody had faith in him. He eventually took on sporadic odd jobs, but nothing permanent. He returned to Mom's place last month and begged for money. She didn't even allow him in this time. She said to him through the door, "You made your decisions. I've heard that he's been sleeping on a friend's couch, but even that buddy is sick of his justifications. Now live with them." When Lori was unable to maintain the facade, her aspirations to become an Instagram influencer were officially dashed. It turns out that when you stop publishing designer hauls and start posting nothing at all, people notice. She most likely deactivated her account out of embarrassment a few weeks ago. I didn't reply when she attempted to contact me once more last month, this time with a tearful tale about how she missed what we had. I sent her message to my lawyer instead. In a cease and desist letter, he reminded her that any further communication would be considered harassment. Since then, I have not heard from her. What was the best part? The consequences did not last for their relationship. Karma is a weird thing. It doesn't just knock you down, it makes sure you stay there. Lori has been living paycheck to paycheck, working a retail job she used to describe as beneath her, and Fletcher left their apartment after one too many arguments. In the meantime, I've had an incredible life. My new relationship is going well, and I received another promotion at work. Emma, my girlfriend, is kind, encouraging, and truly grateful for everything I do. She is everything Lori wasn't. I feel like I'm creating something tangible for the first time in years as we discuss moving in together. The family has also been amazing. My cousins have made it a point to involve me in all of their activities, and Mom has been preparing meals for me every Sunday. I feel as though I've found the support network I was unaware I had lost. Fletcher and Lori, on the other hand, are still attempting to put their broken lives back together. The issue lies in my lack of concern for them. I've moved on. It's been freeing to create a life that isn't centered around their drama. If all of this has taught me anything, it's that you have no influence over the actions of others. You have no control over their attempts to undermine you, deceive you, or betray you. However, you have power over your reaction. It is up to you whether you decide to overcome it, rebuild, and emerge stronger. And I did precisely that. This concludes the saga's last chapter. I want to express my gratitude to everyone who followed along for their encouragement, support, and guidance. You don't realize how much it meant. What about Lori and Fletcher? They are no longer a concern for me. Let them clean up their mess on their own. I have a life to lead.